And joining us now here on the program as harvest is rapidly getting to its conclusion across the U.S. We got to think about fall field work and what agronomic things we need to keep in mind as we wrap up harvest, get into the winter months, and think about moving into spring 2025. Let's talk about some of those things we need to keep in mind. Joining us now, AgriGold agronomist Josh Johnston is with us here today on the show. Josh, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well.
Oh yeah, doing really good. And it's such an important question that you asked there, or important time of year. A lot of people think the busy times in agriculture would be surrounding planting and harvest, and those times are very busy. But as we enter into this, what I'm going to call the post-harvest phase, man, it's such a critical time frame. There's a lot of planning that takes place. A lot of times our mind is shifting into the next year. And so, man, the plans and the decisions that we make right now are paramount to success moving into the future. Probably one of the biggest things that we have to decide, or that we typically decide, shortly after harvest, is product selection.
Mm-hmm.
And that is key, that we make that decision, pretty early for many reasons. One, a lot of these seed companies offer, early pay discounts, and some of those discounts can be significant. So that's important that we capitalize on some of those saving opportunities. Another reason why it's so important is supply. The industry is always running out of the best things. So when we make those decisions early, we're guaranteeing that we capture those, get our hands on the best products available. Thirdly, yields are fresh on our minds. We have a really nice recollection of products that did perform well on our own personal farms, so we can make sure that we get those placed and get those hybrids, get our name on those hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
The next phase, is there's always new corn varieties and new soybean varieties coming to the market, and farmers really have gravitated to the new. And that's really good because, breeding, year over year breeding, the newest products are typically some of the best ones. The hard part for a grower is, how does he decide which new ones to gravitate to, and which one of the products that he's really loving does he want to hold into his lineup? And the way my mind works, it really comes down to a partnership. There's many corn companies, very many soybean suppliers, and it can be confusing. And they're all good. All these companies out there, they're still in business today because they are bringing value and they are bringing good products. So how does a grower sift through that? And the way my brain works is, man, you just got to really lean on to your partnerships. Find the folks out there that can give you solid agronomic advice, people that you can trust, and really lean on them to help make sure that the products that you're buying are landing on the right acre, which is key. You can take a great hybrid and put it in the wrong spot, and it's going to perform terrible. So just, look into the information that you have gleaned on your farm in the previous year, and just tapping into that provider that you have a lot of confidence in, that knows the product, is very, very key to put yourself in a position of success going into the future. The next kind of thing that's on my mind as we go into fall is, it's a good time to really evaluate your fertility plants.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of soil tests are pulled this time of year. And, I sort of have a love-hate relationship with soil tests because they can be so variable, but really and truly, it's the only tool that we have access to. So as we think about soil sampling, I do have a couple pointers that I would like to share with people, just to make that information as accurate as possible.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah,
Go ahead and share.
Yeah. So number one would be timing of soil samples pulled from the field. So if last year, let's just set up a hypothetical scenario. Last year, the fall got really busy, and it was January before you got a chance to get out there and really start pulling your soil samples. This year, it seems like the flow's opening up, and you can do them in October, or you're going to plan on doing them in November. That really throws up a red flag, because when you think about your fertility plans, it's a year over year analysis. So you're thinking about your fertility strategy as more of a long game. You're not going to fix things in 1 year a lot of times. So if you can develop a strategy where you're pulling those soil samples at the same time of year each year, that's going to really take a tremendous amount of variability out of your data. And there's many reasons for that, but the biggest reason would be the temperature of the soil and the soil moisture content. When those things change, you can get some very, very different readings. So I'm not saying don't take a soil sample in January. My point is, try to stay on the same time stamp as you go year to year to year. That'll help you as you analyze previous data, that to be comparing apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. Secondly, a quality sample is very, very important. So, a lot of our farms do have a significant amount of variability as you analyze their yield potential. There's a lot of variability in their yield capabilities. So it's always a smart decision or a smart idea to break those fields up into those zones. I mean, nobody knows the farms better than the grower. So you might take a farm, let's just say it's 100 acres, instead of taking one sample out of that farm, that would not be a very good representative sample. So I would take those farms and break them up into their zones. So maybe one side of the farm has a hill, one side of the farm is a wet creek bottom, and the other side of the farm is typically the most productive. Why not take that, break those up into those zones, and try to get 3 samples that would more accurately represent what's going on into the farm. So especially, the ag economy is not strong at the moment. So there's a lot of little things that would be really easy to overlook from a fertility management strategy. And one of those things is pH correction.
Mm-hmm.
Lime is one of those things that no matter how tight the budget is, you really need to keep your pH at an acceptable level. So what is acceptable? I usually try to shoot for about 6.5. Remember, that's a logarithmic scale. So 6.5 to 6.4 is a 10x move. Don't sound like it's that much, but that's a huge jump in the way we do our soil pHs. So, spend the money on lime. When you keep your soil at that neutral zone, your access to all your macronutrients as well as your macronutrients, you got a lot of abundance that you can just tap into your fertility that's already in the field. So when we're thinking about economics, pH is not one of those areas that we can modify. Another beautiful thing about technology, technology has come such a long ways. Pretty much everybody can provide for you the variable rate maps.
Mm-hmm.
And you can save a lot of money on your lime, because as equal as your fields are unequal in their productivity, your lime numbers, your pH numbers are going to have a crazy amount of variability there too. So think about maybe building some VRT recs for your lime. And then another strategy that I think maybe we should think about when it comes to fertility is use your soil samples as a guide, okay? But when it really comes time to putting dollars to the ground through for our fertilize, I like taking our yield maps, and from the yield maps, creating a variable rate spread map where we're putting back on the nutrition that we took off. So when we get into these times where the ag economy is not super stout, it's probably not a good idea for us to try to build the soil test levels up to where they need. Maybe we need to go into a maintenance type of mindset. Well, using those yield maps as your spread map, how more thorough or how perfect could that be if we're on a maintenance plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're in this zone, we made 100 bushel soybeans. So we're going to put more fertility there. But over here in this zone, for whatever reason, the soybeans were only 50. Well, it doesn't make any sense blanketing your fertilizer when you have that type of variability. So be thinking, I can save money if I'm in this maintenance zone by just applying the nutrition that I removed from a farm. Another thing, like uh, just thinking about leaving the harvest, heading into next year.
Hmm.
The fall is a great time to be thinking about compaction. Did I make a little bit of compaction layer this spring when I was working the field? Do I have an old plow pan that's starting to form? And I would never recommend anybody to just start ripping for the fun of it. Get a soil probe, walk your farms and just, randomly slide that soil probe in and find where those layers are. Are they really, really deep, out of sight, 3 or 4 foot where you can't really reach them anyway? Okay, there's nothing that you can do about that. But you would be surprised how many times you'll find an old plow layer, from back in the 50s or 60s when we were still breaking ground. I mean, those things sometimes can still be around. So the fall is a great time to identify where those are, where those old plow layers are, or where those compaction zones are. And then from there, you can make a plan. Okay, I have several farms that are tight up here at the 4-inch zone. I break through, and then about the 10-inch zone, I start to feel another layer. Well, fall, when the soil's dry, it's a great time to get a really nice shatter and just completely destroy those compaction layers that you might have out there. I do prefer an inline ripper. Uh,
Hmm.
those do a much, much better job of keeping your soil structure together, but also do a really nice job of taking out those plow layers. So then the question always comes, am I running my tool deep enough? Well,
Yeah.
that's a great question, right? And every farm you're going to receive maximum efficiency, you're probably going to need to run that tool at a slightly different depth farm to farm. So to figure out if you're running a proper depth, keep that soil probe with you. Make a pass with your ripper, get out, shove the penetrometer right down the ripper track. Make sure you don't feel anything. Then shove that same soil penetrometer in between the two ripper shanks. And if you go right through, then you had it at a pretty good depth. But if you're running that a little bit too shallow, you won't get point to point shatter. And you'll be able to feel that with the penetrometer when you shove that between the plow points. So if we make a scenario up and we're shoving the penetrometer in between the two ripper shanks, and at 10 inches, we're still hitting a hard zone, that's a clear indication that maybe we need to drop our ripper a couple inches deeper, make another pass, and then start filling in between those plow points to see if you're getting a full shatter. Once you get that full shatter, okay, I'm deep enough for this farm. The soil's
Yeah.
dry, so you're going to burn up a lot of plow points, but just smile when you're doing that. If you're getting thousands of acres on your plow points, it's probably too wet and you're probably not doing as good a job as you should be doing. So buy a bunch of points and just smile that you're doing a fantastic job with that tillage tool.
Yeah. There's so many things. That was a great rundown, honestly, of the amount of decisions and things that we have to think about. And really, Josh, a short amount of time. I know you're in Kentucky, but you think about going into some of the northern states, for instance. I mean, that window before we could see a snowfall and things like that, it's very, very short at times. So I think to kind of sum that all up at the end of the day, is we're making decisions to a point you made earlier. Farmers, work with your team, so to speak, your trusted
Yes,
advisor, your agronomist, retail, etc., to help make these decisions and build that plan out here. As again, sometimes that time window can be a little short, right?
it sure can. We are blessed. The further south you go, we have a much longer time to enjoy warmer temperatures, have
Hmm.
our soil working for us. But as you move north, that door does shut. So things like residue management that comes into play. The more of this year's fodder that we can break down in this year's cycle, that's that much work that we have to do less in the spring. So get those stalks touching a little bit of dirt. That'll help your soil work for you, breaking down the residue. just creating a nice plant bed as we think into the spring of next year.
Absolutely. Well, I know if folks have questions, plenty of resources available online
Sure.
as well.
Sure.
Agrigold.com, a great place to start, or contact your local agronomist, retailer, et cetera, et cetera. Josh, as we close it out today, anything final you want to add or reiterate to folks?
Well, I think that team approach, like we've mentioned twice so far, creating that partnership, that's kind of the AgriGold way. We want to be not just your provider of seed, but your true partner in the field. And not, after the sale's over, we're not gone. We're going to help all along the way. And there's tons of people that you can build as your trusted partner. But like my dad always says, two heads is better than one, four is better than two, right? So as many partners as you can bring in to make yourself feel good and successful. That's always excites me.
Agrigold.com for more information. Really appreciate the insight and the conversation today. Josh Johnston, agronomist for Agrigold in Kentucky. Josh, thanks for being with us here on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.